So a long time ago, when I didn't even have a capture card or actually script anything, I had made a countdown on the boss fights in the main series Klonoa games, and it was pretty fucking awful. I've been meaning to do this list over again, and, well, here we are. Also, I thought it'd be kind of a fun way to celebrate reaching 1,000 subscribers. Personally, I really enjoy the Klonoa games, as it's easily one of my favorite 2D platformer series. From the PS1 Classic to even the lesser known 2 GBA games, I've played them all. Or at least the games that were released here in the US. I mean, I own Klonoa Volleyball, but I can't play it because I don't own a Japanese PlayStation. Anywho, these games have a nice combination of unique platforming due to Klonoa's Wind Ring, and problem solving using switches and your own enemies. But like many other games, one of the highlights of the series is the boss fights. Now let me say that in this list I will only be focusing on the boss fights in the two main series games, those being Door to Phantomile and Luantea's Veil. While Empire Dreams has some decent boss fights, Dream Champ Tournament really doesn't have boss fights, kinda. These are more like races than fights, so I don't think it'd be fair to compare them to the boss fights in the main series games. Plus, I just like the main series games more. Second, the boss fights from Dawn of Phantomile will be from the original PlayStation 1 game, rather than the Wii remake. I've played the remake, but that was quite a few years ago, and currently I don't own it. But instead, I own the PlayStation 1 game. And thirdly, this list is simply my own opinion of which boss fights I personally enjoy more than others. I haven't seen many people talk about the boss fights in the series, so I don't know what people's reactions to my list might be like. So again, keep in mind that this list is just my own opinion. Now, why don't we take a look at some enjoyable boss fights in a rather lesser known series. Oh, and also there are going to be some minor spoilers in both games, so you've been warned. Okay, look, I love the original Klonoa game. It's a classic that I've played quite a few times, but not as many times as I've played Klonoa 2. So boy was I surprised just to see how much I really hate this boss fight when replaying the game for this list. Yes, at the bottom of the list we have Galaga Bolam. I think that's how you pronounce its name. I've seen two other ways to spell it, and by the way, get used to me not pronouncing names correctly. And trust me, you'll see what I mean later on. Back to this bastard. First off, I hate the look of this creature. I think it's a plant creature that's in some Ironheart nutshell, but it's just so uninteresting and feels uninspired. As for the boss fight itself, well, the okay parts are when you have to dodge the charge attack and his strange seed ball thing. I don't know what the hell this is. My problem with the boss fight has to do with two things. First, the springs. Again, I love this game, but Klonoa is very picky about how you should deal with jumping on springs, which will either mess you up and get you hit, or have you waste a move while trying to jump off the spring. My second problem is his jumping attack. You will have to wait for the monster to land before you can hit him, but while in the air, the monster will follow you. So you have to run back and forth and make sure you don't have him land too close to a spring or you can't hit him. And there really isn't a good tell from when the creature will land. Keep in mind, you'll have to be dodging some moves while the monster is in the air as well. This is just a boss fight that doesn't feel really great for me, and is far more frustrating than it is fun. Also, it turns out the fight was just a decoy so Joka could get some information, because Joka's such a little asshole. Please tell me I'm not alone in hating this fucking robot as a child. Whew, mobile tank Bisque Arsh was a nightmare for me as a kid when I played Klonoa 2. Now, the first part of this fight isn't that bad. You have to use these super jump pads to get above the tank and hit its head with a flying move. Though, once it starts shooting rockets at you is when things start to get more frustrating. It's still manageable, but the second half of the fight are where things start to change up a bit. It will now run over the whole stage, and you have to time your jump properly to hit it as it passes by. It's not too hard, but without those wheels, it becomes much harder. The tank will now start shooting more rockets at you as well as jumping around the stage. It can't hurt you if it lands on you, but it can kill your flying move, which is actually just as annoying. It becomes just chaos trying to hit the damn thing, and honestly, I've grown to like this boss fight. Sure, I hated it as a kid, but now I rather like how high and exhilarating this fight can get. It also helps that I now know you can simply walk through the jump pads with no issue, as before I would always try jumping over them only to be sent flying in the air and get hit. So why, if I like this boss fight, is the tank so low on this list? Simple. It's because the fucker chases you in Vulcan Inferno, which to this day is still a level that can frustrate me. Seriously, seeing this thing emerge in the level still gets me a bit nervous. Mostly because the tank is chasing Klonoa really close in this level, and this only cost me so many lives because I always try to go for all the puppet pieces when replaying the game. When it comes to this level, you've got to be ready for anything and time your actions well. Because of that, I still have a hatred for this tank. Though, to be fair, Bisque Arsh does at least go out in style by being hit by a train, which is actually quite satisfying. I hate to be that guy, but the final boss in Klonoa 2 is pretty underwhelming. The King of Sorrow is divided up into 3 sections. The first section takes place in some weird blue tunnel thing where you have to dodge these spikes and throw some enemies at him. Well, I think you're hitting him because I have no idea what that thing is that you're hitting in this stage. It's not that hard at all, you just have to be patient to get a good moment to hit him. Plus the spikes are pretty easy to avoid. The second and third parts of the boss fight are very similar, with the King of Sorrow and this bubble thing. He'll try to hit you with these claws that are easy to dodge. All you have to do is grab a claw and start hitting these orbs on the King's bubble. I think the orb things will start shooting lasers at you, but I don't know for sure since I almost never get hit by them. This boss fight can be beaten only a few minutes, and even though those small orb things start spinning around pretty fast, it's actually not too hard to time your jumps and throws well enough to hit them every time they pass you. Maybe I've played the game too much, which has caused me to get far too familiar with this boss fight, but even then, I find it to be very boring for a final boss fight with little challenge, especially since the previous boss was actually some pretty good build-up. I quite like Godius as a villain. He has a simple but cool design and has an intimidating presence. Plus, he's got a great haunting voice. As for his boss fight though, well, it's not awful, but I do have some issues with it. I don't mind the first part, where you just have to grab some moves and throw them at him, and it's pretty easy to dodge his attacks here. Once he starts throwing these weird triangle things and these bullet looking orbs is when I start to get annoyed. Like, come on, these fucking bullet things move around randomly, making it frustrating to try and get some moves off of them. And to add some insult to injury, the entire stage will continually rotate left or right. As for the triangle thing, it too can be difficult to break out the moves from this thing, but Godius telegraphs where he throws it, so it's not too hard to dodge. I can see why some people might not like the warping orbs that once touched will warp Klonoa above the ring, but it's easy to dodge Godius' attack here. It's just a time waster. At the very least, Godius looks cool during the fight, and I still like him as a villain. I just wish his fight was more interesting or fun. Alright, here where things start to get a bit more fun and exciting. Let me introduce you to Fulguron, the first boss in Klonoa 2, and what a great first boss this is. Okay, yeah, it's a very easy boss fight. Like, super easy. Fulguron spins around and you simply hit his tail. Ooh, so hard. At most, you'll have to jump over his arms or these spikes, but again, it's pretty easy to dodge these, so they aren't really much of a threat. So with such a simplistic fight, why do I like it so much? Well, for one, I really like the look of the creature. It's a cool looking armored dragon-like monster, and I love it, and enjoy seeing it shoot out steam as a way to intimidate Klonoa. Plus, the stage you fight on is kinda cool by being up in the mountains with a temple in the background, and the song that plays during the fight is great too. But the best part for me is that Fulguron is such a great first impression when it comes to the boss fights in this game. First bosses are important, and I find Fulguron to be very well done, and that's why I still enjoy this battle. So here's a crazy looking boss who honestly fits the theme of Joliant really well. Yes, it's the flower clown Leptio, who you have to fight in a colorful circus feeling arena. I'll admit, I'm not really a huge fan of his design, though it's certainly much better than Galaga Bolam. Because this fight takes place in the Kingdom of Fun, Leptio starts things off by playing a game of Find the Real Flower Clown. It's not that hard, but the fun part for me is trying to see just how fast I can get Leptio to roll around the ring. Best I've gotten so far is getting him down to 1 hit left. So close to taking out his first half in 1 round. Things get a bit more interesting when Leptio brings out his spiked cone thing. Yeah, I have no idea what you would call it. I quite like it though. It makes the fight a bit more interesting, and I find the colorful spikes to be kinda dazzling. It ultimately becomes Leptio's weakness, since knocking it over leaves him open to getting hit. But I would say this helps make the battle a bit more entertaining. Once again, we have a rather easy boss battle, who at the very least is kinda memorable for the battle that plays out. Well, let's talk about the other final boss fight. This time, Naju Tomb. Now, while Naju Tomb is one ugly-ass motherfucker, he is most certainly the best final boss of the two main games. One thing that really complements this final boss fight is that it's a pretty challenging and surprisingly long battle. Like, okay, the first third of the boss isn't really that amazing. I personally hate Naju Tomb's fucking tongue attack, not because it's hard to dodge, but because it really slows down the fight, and if you're touched by the tongue, then get ready for a rather long animation that for some reason really annoys me. There are two moments when you have to throw moves into the cannons your friends are operating, with the second time being far more interesting to me. I really like this aspect, as it helps conclude the game and make it feel like a proper final boss fight. Here you are, taking out the ultimate evil with the help of those you rescued. It's great. It's the final third stage of this boss fight that to me is the most fun, since you'll have to keep moving as Naju Tomb destroys the platforms you're running along. Plus, Naju Tomb himself looks pretty awesome. The main thing I hate about this boss fight is when you're in his belly. Like, fuck, this is an annoying section of this fight. While you're trying to take out these crystals, you're running along a rocking, slippery platform that's easy to fall off of, as well as dodging these laser eyes. Then, oh joy, the crystal you're trying to hit starts moving around too. Had the middle part of this final fight been better, Naju Tomb would be much higher on this list, but I hate that part. I stand by my statement though, that this is by far the best final boss fight in the series. How about we give the first boss in Door to Phantomile some attention? It's Rongo Longo, some weird lizard anteater looking thing with a strange tail. Unlike Fulgron, things are a bit more interesting here. Well, okay, he only has like 3 moves and they're pretty easy to dodge. But I quite enjoy this fight, like how bizarre Rongo Longo's design is, and fighting him on top of a hill with a bell at the center makes for a nice and memorable arena. I will admit that I find it annoying that Joka informs you how to hurt Rongo Longo before the battle begins. I mean, honestly, it's not that hard to figure out, despite my bad habit of not getting close enough to even hit him. Much like Fulgron, he's a good first impression to the boss fights to come, who just has okay music, but is a more engaging first boss fight. I love this fight so much. Welcome to the bridge that gets fucked up. Joka is still trying to kill Klonoa, and this time he uses Baldium, some dragonfly cobra hybrid who honestly looks kinda cool and cute to me. I don't know why, but I just love the look of this monster. As for the fight itself, it's pretty neat as you try to hit him on a swinging bridge. Most of the obstacles he puts in your way as the bridge sways towards him are rather easy to dodge. But I quite like it as there's a nice feel to the bridge's movement. I can see people complaining that this boss fight is too easy, and yeah, it is. Plus, you can beat this boss in under 3 minutes if you time your throws just right. Regardless of how easy this fight is, I still find it to be a fun but simple boss battle that is overall pretty memorable for me. For any of you who have seen some of my level lists, then you may have picked up on the fact that I rather like water-themed levels, which takes us to Mad Seedoff and Cursed Pomelo. Now, the Jugpot King himself I don't find to be too interesting. No, the main attraction here for me is Pomelo, who has such a neat color scheme when cursed. Not only that, but I really love Pomelo's design as well. She's basically this sea serpent fish creature, which is fine by me since I have a fondness for aquatic wildlife. The water shrine arena that this battle takes place in is a cool looking place, with a nice theme to complement the fight. Beating these two isn't too difficult. You basically just throw them at each other while jumping over these large spiked balls. The only time this fight gets slightly challenging is when Pomelo starts shooting bubbles, which I also enjoy. I'll completely admit that one of the reasons this fight is so high is not only because I enjoy this battle, but because I also really like water-themed levels. For me personally, it's just a really fun fight, and it feels great to save Carl's mother. Now why don't we talk about my favorite boss fight in Door to Phantomile? Joka. Man, Joka is such a fun villain to me. He's not just content with using monsters to attack Klonoa, but he also kills Klonoa's quote-unquote grandfather, holds Granny hostage, and steals keys to keep Klonoa from progressing. Finally though, he's had enough, and now it's one-on-one between Klonoa and Joka. What's cool about this fight is that it has a night and day stage to it that it transitions between throughout the battle. Don't get me wrong, the day part isn't amazing and Joka's arms can get annoying when they're constantly blocking your throws, and Joka really doesn't do much here. At night though, Joka becomes an awesome looking turtle demon clown monster who's ready to kill Klonoa with some simple but fun moves to dodge. You've gotta turn things back to day, and to do so, you need to walk over the panels to make them all yellow again. It's a bit weird, yet I really like it, and it's great build up for Godius, who isn't as great of a boss fight. Oh well. The music isn't too bad, and the fight taking place in the clouds is cool, and finally taking out Joka feels so good. Seriously, just look at him. He's so beaten up that he explodes, which is honestly a great way for him to die. On the topic of great boss fights that have amazing build up to rather lesser boss fights, we have cursed Lea Reyna. Throughout the game, Lea Reyna has been constantly causing trouble for Klonoa, Popka, and Lolo. She threw Fullergon at them, Tab messed with them in Joliant, creates her own wind ring, and Lea Reyna even tries to destroy Volk. But now it's time to face her, as she becomes corrupted by the elements, and transforms into a badass looking dragon demon-like monster. First off, the music that plays during this fight is really good, and fits the tone of the battle perfectly. Spending most of her time jumping around the stage, you're going to need to time some electro jumps very well to hit her. It's surprisingly a bit more challenging than I thought, as any poorly timed jump will probably end up getting Klonoa hurt. Especially when she's down to one hit left and turns from a white and blue color scheme to a black and purple one, which honestly looks great. Hitting her belly with an electro jump feels awesome though, as you really get a sense of impact with each hit. Sure, there's a moment when she's walking around under the arena, but it's really not that hard to hit her and dodge her ball during this part. Plus, actually hitting her when she's doing a charged ground pound attack is pretty great too. Unfortunately, I don't always manage to pull this off, but at least it's not too hard to dodge this attack. In the end, this is such a fantastic boss battle from another good villain. So for any of you who have played Klonoa 2, you've probably figured it out by now what my number 1 is, and may even be confused as to why I love this boss fight so much. Yes, at number 1 we have Pay the Hatchling. I think that's how you pronounce it. Again, really weird names that I don't always know how to pronounce. This is a fight that focuses on speed and the new hoverboard. In fact, you're on the hoverboard and are constantly moving throughout the whole fight. Go through these bubbles while dodging the spiky seeds from Polonte, and you'll start going faster till you go so fast that you run into the creature, and it feels so good to go that fast. And I like how the eggshell starts to crack as you hit him. With the egg hatched and revealing some chicken lizard plant looking creature, Lolo gets some encouragement to not let her failures get her down and to keep trying, which enters us into the second half of the fight. And hey, the music that plays during this battle might sound a bit familiar to any of you who have seen my other countdowns. Yeah, I really love this theme, as well as the cool snowy background of the arena. You still need to go fast, but now you have to dodge some ice as well and throw moves at Polonte. I wouldn't say this is a very hard fight, and if you really time your movement and throws well during the second half, you can end this battle in under 5 minutes. But I still really love this fight. It's a boss battle that really stood out to me for some reason when I first ever played the game. Even as a kid, I would refight this boss multiple times because I found it to be so entertaining. Every time I go back to Klonoa 2, this is one of the first things I look forward to, and it's the boss that sticks out the most in my mind. I can't say it's the best boss fight in the game, but for me personally, it's my favorite. Thanks for watching my video, and please share your favorite boss fights in the comment section down below. I hope you did enjoy this video. I've been working on it for a while, and I hope the second half of this isn't too bad. It might sound a bit kinda nasally because I'm a bit congested while recording this. I've been really wanting to try to get it out here, so hopefully it doesn't sound too awful. And I hope the script turned out well too. The original script involved me really explaining every single detail of the boss fights, and it just seemed to get really repetitive, so I tried to focus it more on what I enjoyed or didn't enjoy about each boss battle. Plus, the these are some pretty simple boss fights to begin with, so I don't think an explanation was really all that necessary. But again, I hope you did enjoy this, and hey, who knows, maybe I can get this out before Demolition D gets out his video, which is taking forever. It's gonna be a while before I decide to work on my next countdown, but until then, I'm MCB the PS2 Gamer, and I'll see you all next time.